Alrighty, so I'd like to thank you for joining me. I like seeing all your shows online from Magic Lounge to the castle, and so I'm excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Timothy.
Of course,
Excited.
and so for the first part, can you please explain a little bit about yourself for those who don't know who you are?
Yeah, my name is Mark Clearview. I'm a magician and comedian, and I guess the style of magic that I do is a little absurd and fun. And I've been doing it for 20 years, and I have no other skills.
That's great. And so, you performed at multiple venues from the Magic Lounge in Chicago to the Magic Castle in California. Uh, is there a specific venue that you've enjoyed performing at?
Yeah, yes, the Chicago Magic Lounge is one of my favorite venues in the world to perform at. I mean, you just mentioned two of the top hitters for me. I love all the time that I spent at the castle with everyone there. I often say to people there's a history that comes with the Magic Castle that obviously the lounge hasn't been around long enough to have gained yet. That feels very special to think about all the magicians that have come through before you. And there's actually a nice thing that they do if you're a performer at the castle. You sign an Ace of Hearts, and then it goes into like a book of every magician that's ever performed at the castle's Ace
Oh,
of Hearts.
wow.
Yeah, so knowing that mine is among so many amazing performers who have come through there is it's kind of baffling to even think about. But the lounge, because it's newer, they've been able to make like a very specific space for magic. So it kind of feels like performing in a stadium. When you come out, everybody's ready to be wowed. And the audiences in Chicago are kind of unparalleled. It's kind of it spoils you if you're trying new material there because you think, oh, I'm this is amazing, this is going to crush every time, and then you try it somewhere else. You're like, well, the Chicago audiences are really nice.
I
So
mean, if I'm not mistaken, also Harry Blackstone is from Chicago too. So
yeah,
Chicago is known for a little bit of magic too.
yeah, he's from there. So many great magicians. I think Jay Marshall's from Chicago also. A lot. I mean, Bill Malone. Tons of great Chicago performers.
Have you performed in the 654 Club, or is it just the Blackstone Cabaret?
I've only ever done the Blackstone Cabaret, and I mean, I'm such a stage guy. I do close up, but I'm not good. So that's,
I've only been there once, and I saw the show for both, and it was spectacular. We saw Peter Samuelson in
oh,
the
great. He's
654,
great.
yeah, and then we
Yeah, yeah,
saw
yeah.
Eric Leclerc in
Eric Leclerc's a friend. We met at Magic Camp Sorcerer Safari in Canada, and he's so funny. He's an influence on a lot of my material, actually. Yeah, I wish I have seen him perform. Was he in 654?
no, he was in Blackstone Cabaret.
Yeah, so he's
Samuelson
amazing.
was 654.
Yeah, yeah. So that makes sense to me. Yeah, Eric's so great. Peter Samuelson, from what I've seen in New York, is amazing.
Oh,
And
he's phenomenal.
yeah, yeah,
And so what got you into magic?
it's a good question, Timothy, that I'm asked often. I usually say that a witch put a curse on me when I was 6, but that is not entirely accurate. It was a warlock. I got into magic because it's funny. I've told this story so many times, so I try to vary it. But the long and short of it is that my parents hired a magician for my third birthday, and I wanted one again for my fourth, and I wanted one again for my fifth. And when I was 4, I learned some tricks. So I've been doing magic since I was 4. I was interested in when I was 3, doing it when I was 4, performed my first show when I was 5, which probably had like 25 tricks in it for, like 30 minutes. And then my first paid gig was when I was 6 in a basement, 12 people, I believe for $50. And the next year I did a couple more. Next year I did a couple more. And the story goes that I've never worked another gig for money in my life. Money is a loose term. But I've been lucky enough to do magic full time since then, which is incredible. And
But
as I tell the story more, I realize, and I see videos of myself like at 3 or 4 doing little tricks, that I've been doing magic since before I have memories of it. So I've actually been a magician longer than I can even recall, which is pretty wild. Um, yeah.
That's great. And so you perform a variety of tricks. Is there a trick or a joke that sticks out to you the most when you perform?
My, I think when I'm having the most fun, well, I'm having the most fun with the new material right now. I think one of the things that started it all that I'm most proud of, I'm looking at the box. It's above, it's right there.
Is
The
that
chick,
the egg that turns into the
yeah.
it's a so yeah. That's
I mean, it's a simple thing. It's taking a dove prop and using a rotisserie chicken instead. For those who don't know, I put an egg in. People expect some sort of bird. It's a rotisserie chicken. Then it goes in like the Costco tub and it gets handed to somebody in the audience. And in some shows, it gets used again later. But it's such a, I'm proud of it because it tells you who I am immediately, which is good. I have a lot of fun doing it because it's very stupid. And there's a new trick with greeting cards where somebody chooses one of three greeting cards and it's the only one that I've signed and it's signed to their name and we've never met before. That's brand new and I'm kind of workshopping it right now. But I call it not a card trick. Um, but that's been getting. I think I'm surprised by the mileage that that trick has gotten. Because I was
and
like,
if
oh,
I'm
this is
not mistaken, you've also performed that on Canada's Got Talent as your audition, correct?
did I do the greeting cards?
No, not the greeting card. You did it with Howie's sign card, I think.
Yeah. And I did the chicken there as well,
Yeah, and that was
which
that was
appeared there.
hilarious. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks.
And so speaking of Canada's Got Talent, what was the process like to get onto Canada's Got Talent? And during the finals, were you more nervous than eliminations?
Yeah, so they asked me a number of times to do it. I think there's two ways, right? You either submit your audition video or the producers approach you. And I'm not saying that one has any more merit or ability to move you on. There's just two ways that you're found. So they've approached me three times and I said no every time because I was resistant. Um, it's hard to judge art in a vacuum like that against so many other people. Because what are we really looking at? It's so subjective. And I finally decided to get over myself and do it. And so I did it. Um, yeah, and I also wanted to do what I do. I told them I really wanted to be my type of magic. I don't want to take any notes and change it. And they were happy with my crazy, weird, long chicken card table flip, kind of like just like a greatest hits of mine. Because I was thinking I'm gonna take all my best moments and put it into one routine. So if I don't, when I don't move forward, most likely I will have all these clips that I can just pull from. So at least it's like visual things on TV. And then I moved on. It's like, okay, so what am I going to do for my next thing? And your question about when I was most nervous, I got to be honest, I think I was shocked by the nerves of my first audition. I'm sorry if you can hear sirens. I live in New York half the time,
They're
so
coming for you.
they're coming for this terrible material that I. Yeah, my first audition, I was surprised by how scared I was. I always, and they asked me, and I said, and it's true, for about like 2 minutes beforehand, it feels unbearable. And then you go on stage, and then the other guy takes over. So I'll just let him do his job. But the the 5 minutes before, I was like, am I gonna vomit? This is really my like I'm tingling. But my adrenaline was so high that I did the best job that I could have done. It really elevated me to my best level as opposed to a nervous messing up level. I just kind of clicked in. And so much so that during my second time, I knew I was coming down upside down from the ceiling. And it's funny, I do a straight jacket escape suspended. Probably the highest I've been in the air is 25 feet. And they said, we're going to fly you in, but we need to like fly you up there. We have to turn the judges around so they don't see you. And then we need to fly you in like you've been up there the whole time. So you'll be up there for a little bit and it's about 50 feet and it's high. Is that okay with you? I was like, oh yeah, I've done it 100 times. Um, and so when we got there on the day and I saw the rigging and we were talking about it, I secretly told Michael, who you might have seen is my dear friend and sexy assistant. I asked him to please get a bucket. Like I was like, just get a trash can close by because I knew how nervous I was for the auditions. So I thought with that level of nerves on top of it and upside down in the air and then having to do a whole act afterward, this might have been a gamble that was not the right move.
How long were you up for?
Oh, a minute. Yeah, but that feels like a long time.
Yeah.
Hanging upside down, 50 feet. Um, yeah, I'm glad we did it that way because I wasn't as nervous as the audition. And even in the final, I think each time I actually felt calmer. Obviously, a lot was riding on the final, and that trick was new. And I'd only performed it at the lounge before
Which one was new? The finals or eliminations?
the finals, the
Oh,
confetti. Yeah. And it was live. So, but I felt good.
yeah. I remember watching it at my backstage at my choir concert because you were live streaming. I'm like, oh, this is actually good stuff. Like, and then I messaged you. I'm like, oh, is this how you did it? And you said no. I'm like, oh well, that goes my idea. Like,
Yeah. You messaged me a method that could work. I there's some cuts because it's live that I'm like, oh, this is stronger without that cut. But I'm proud of the method. I know how to improve it. There's like two weak moments for me, which I won't get into, but
yeah,
there's like too much time is taken where it doesn't need to be. And if those are removed, I think it will be stronger. So when you see it again, I hope it will look stronger.
that's awesome. And so, with you having different types of shows, how do you go about scripting your shows? Not scripting in the sense of it being fake, but writing it so it is a good show.
Yeah. Whew, it's a really good question. And my area of focus right now, to be honest, I can do an hour show. I do it all the time. And for corporate but that's it. That's a different, the point, what I'm trying to get to is I don't believe if somebody came and said, we're going to tape your hour-long special, for example, that I would have that show ready to go because my focus right now has been routines and routining routines. So each routine is its own complete theatrical packaged story. And there's kickers that can be like dragged out to the end, but for the most part, they are standalone pieces. And I've designed that way right now because my interest is television and being able, if somebody says come do 5 minutes, come do 10 minutes, lineup stuff like that, I have what gets me across in that amount of time, and the routine is standalone. A show, you need to craft that through line, the pieces that come back, the jokes that are runners for the entire thing. And I have written one full show called Perfection, which I did in Toronto and the Summerworks Festival in I believe 2017. Uh, I liked it then. Obviously, we move on. I'm like not proud of it now. But the question, how do I go about scripting? So, in terms of a routine, I think I start with, well, I do writing retreats each year with my writing partner and assistant, Michael, who we bounce a bunch of ideas off each other. So I kind of have this bank of things that are interesting to me. So I think always starting with an idea that's interesting to you and then seeing how far you can run with it. And I think some offer more resistance, which doesn't mean they're bad ideas. It's just, it might be easier to transfer to something that is a little bit easier to run with. Some things I just start kind of like vamping on, and I'll either just type or write like where I think the routine will go. And sometimes it's very easy; it just falls into my lap. For example, the greeting card thing was just based on a joke, which was name any card to somebody, and they say the six of clubs, and I go, "Damn, nobody ever says greeting," and I have a bunch of greeting cards, which is pretty stupid. But then I thought, well, I can actually expound on that. I have props in my hand and I can do a routine. And my um, there's another routine that I thought of like this. Oh, the cereal box, which you might have seen from the Chicago Magic Lounge video. Uh,
Is that the one with the life?
yeah, that was based on me just actually saying at one point. You know, when it comes down to it, I find the secret of life, and then I go, actually, they explain it better, and I pull out like a flattened life cereal box, and I just read. It's like 10 essential nutrients and a hint of sweetness, and it didn't really ever work because it's proppy and stupid. Um, but then I thought, you know, if I have this flattened box, well, it would be cool if after I read that and get like the minor gag that I pop it open and I'm able to pour cereal out of it. And that worked well. And I made my own little, you know, thing. And then my dad, who was a great builder of magic, made a version that could open up so you could show it empty. And I was like, oh, that's actually fooling. So ideas that I kind of literally just sit and write, and I think people are resistant to sitting and writing in scripting, and I was for a long time. And I find the best way for me to script is, and some people should try, is just sitting and writing, just trying it. And usually if you write, 60 pages, there'll be at least one usable one. So it's a good way to do it. Yeah,
That's
sorry, that was
awesome.
a long-winded response, but
That's great. And so, you have also been on Penn and Teller aside from Canada's Got Talent. Can you please talk about your time on Penn and Teller a little bit?
I want to do this all the time, Timothy. This is just you're just telling me all my accolades back at me. I feel like, oh, I've done some stuff. This is good. Um, I'll pay you later for all the things you're making up. Uh, I had a great time on Fool Us. I'm laughing because it was during the pandemic, and it was my first time back on stage after what, a year hiatus, 2 years, a year I did in 2021. So after a year of not performing, my first time back was in front of my childhood heroes. These are my favorite magicians without a doubt, with no other audience. Everybody else is put in post. So every joke that worked, I heard work. Every joke that didn't, I heard not. And it was just for these two guys. I was put at ease a little bit sooner because I flipped over the table when I ran on to start, which is an intro I do less as I get older. But I heard them laugh and was like, okay, this is gonna be fine. But it was a very strange experience to kind of pretend that there's a whole theater, but also not get. I found myself getting sucked into Penn and Teller. But I had a wonderful experience. That show is makes magicians look good. Their whole point is to show good magic and say nice things. And yeah, I had very positive response from tons of wonderful performers, and it was cool to be shown, to the magic community at large, which is ultimately what I want to add to. All I'm trying to do with my magic is add to the voice of the magic scene. So that way I'm doing something slightly different. Some people may disagree that I'm doing that, but it's what I intend to do, and I know that that's my intention. So
That's awesome. And so, speaking of Penn and Teller being childhood heroes, is there other magicians who stick out to be your inspirations as you got to be a bigger magician?
yeah, this is gonna sound cheesy. Houdini had a huge role. I read The Secret Life of Houdini by Bill Kalush, Larry Sloman. I apologize if I'm getting that second author wrong, but um, that because of course I think we know now that Houdini was, yes, an okay magician, a wonderful escape artist, but like a PR person, and really the lasting legacy of still being the magician that everybody names this how many years later, over 100 years later, is unfathomable to me. It really stuck with me that magic is bigger than the physical tricks that we're doing. So he was a huge hero in this big mega almost spiritual sense. And then Penn and Teller, the smart, funny, irreverent style was really important to me. And Tom Mullica is a new one who watching he's so sharp and always so funny, and I like also irreverent and wonderful, but just constantly doing totally unique, very very funny material, and like the total quick performer clown, just kind of has it all. um Amazing Jonathan, huge influence. That's actually who I wanted to be most like when I was younger, to the point where I can see some of my gags still being like things that come out of a case quickly, and that was his whole shtick. But uh, yeah, that was really important to me. Yeah, just so many people. I mean, then there's the people who like actually taught me and were my mentors, like Scott Hamill, four-time Guinness World Record holder, Canadian magician, just a fantastic magician and speaker and motivator. And then Aaron Fisher was my card teacher. So if you ever see me do a poor pass, it's his fault. Um, no, he was really great. So yeah, there's just I could keep going, but Love it.
That's great. And so, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Floss. Gotta floss more. Um, because you're gonna get cavities because you have such weak enamel. And besides that, advice. I think, and I, I hope my future me walks in right now and tells me to stop stressing right now. But I would just say to stop stressing so much that like it's not gonna work out because I don't even know what that means. Um, everything's going to go exactly the way that it's supposed to, and it has been. And I live a beautiful life with a beautiful partner in two beautiful cities with magic that speaks to me, and I feel creative and I live comfortably. All that I was scared of is going to come in time, is what I would say. And also, just stop being so worried about who you are as a performer. What's my brand? Does this fit with me? What am I? And I spent much time in my room trying to like figure out who I was, and you can't figure it out in your room. You have to go do it on stage. So, which is actually something Aaron Fisher told me. But just try everything. Just go do things that you like, and then you kind of just become who you are, as opposed to trying to manufacture it and then do it. Those would be my two pieces of advice.
That's awesome. And so this next question actually ties into the last. If a younger student would want to become a magician, what advice would you give him or her?
Yeah. I think I'm trying to think about how young we're talking. If somebody came up to me and said, "Okay, I want to get into this," first you can tell if the person is seriously wanting to do this for their life. So, because there's kids are interested in magic all the time, and I'll recommend some tricks. But if somebody really wants to be a magician, I'll say you gotta start reading, hang out around magicians. Like you're so close to the lounge that it's great to go to the lounge and be around. I mean, what a gift. Like the best performers are coming through there all the time. That's really how you learn. Hopefully you meet, all the nice ones coming through because those are the people who make change lives, and the people who have for me. Um, expert at the card table, Tarbell, course. But I would say just start just ingesting it and doing it, like practice it and then do it and just keep that, which sounds like, wow, what prolific advice I'm offering. This is going to change lives. Um, yeah, you just got to start doing magic and very quickly, once the bug is there, it kind of takes a life of its own. And don't worry so much. That's my advice. And if you want me to help you out, you can join my course for it's $100 an hour. It's taught by a video of me, but I don't have a course because I have nothing to teach. But that's my advice.
That's awesome. And so that actually wraps up the interview. So I'd like to thank you for joining me today.